all the students, scholars, and teachers philosophy across the country to be connected with this Sunday webinar. Friends, today we have two speakers in this in first session and second session, and I can see on the screen uh, many known friends of our state and across the country. I do not want to recite their name. They are very popular in the philosophical discussion in different times. Today, the theme is the philosophy of Wittgenstein. On the this is the year of 100 years of the Tractatus of Ludwig Wittgenstein. So today, the philosophical discussion on the philosophy of Wittgenstein must refresh and enrich our mind. Today, the two speakers are Dr. Ashok Kumar Tarai and Dr. Ratikant Panda. Dr. Ashok Kumar Tarai will speak in the first session, and Dr. Ratikant Panda will speak in the second session. Dr. Ashok Kumar Tarai is the assistant professor of philosophy in the School of Philosophy, GM University, Sambalpur. He will speak on Wittgenstein on meaning and metaphysics. In the second session, Dr. Ratikant Panda, the associate professor, Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Mumbai, will speak on Wittgenstein on the life and meaning. Before inviting both the speakers, it's my pride privilege to speak a few words on their academic journey. Due to the paucity of time, and though we want to provide more time to the speakers, I don't want to speak much on their academic pursuits. You know, both the speakers, Dr. Ashok Kumar Tarai and Dr. Ratikant Panda, they have completed their MA, MPhil and PhD from the University of Hyderabad, the same university. And Dr. Ashok Kumar Tarai also got a NET from UGC. Dr. Tarai, after working in Srimata Vaishnava Devi University, Jammu Kashmir, as the assistant professor of philosophy, he joined in GM University, Odisha, as the assistant professor of philosophy, and he is continuing till date. Dr. Tarai's interest includes the philosophy, the analytical philosophy, the philosophy of Wittgenstein, and that is the socio-political philosophy. And to his credits, Dr. Tarai has contributed a number of articles in different national and international journals. He has also written more than 100 articles, which have been reflected in different national and international journals. Dr. Tarai has also been invited to different workshops, symposiums, state level, national level, and international level seminars to speak on the different issues, pertinent issues of philosophy. He has also been invited as speakers to different colleges and universities. He has also organized different ICPA programs, World Philosophy Day, and other periodical lectures. Dr. Tarai is the life member of AOPA, All Orsa Philosophy Association, Indian Philosophical Congress, Ludwig Wittgenstein Philosophical Society, member of British Wittgenstein Society, and General Secretary of AOPA. I welcome and congratulate Dr. Ashok Kumar Tarai in the first session. And our second speaker is Dr. Ratikant Panda. He is also a very known figure for all of us. As I spoke before, he has also completed MA, MPhil and PhD from the University of Hyderabad. Dr. Panda is at present working as associate professor in IIT Mumbai. He has more than 15 years of teaching experience in IIT Mumbai. He keeps interest in the philosophy of language, philosophy of Wittgenstein, philosophy, culture and values, ethics, contemporary Indian philosophy. He has also contributed more than 100 articles in different national, international seminars, and many of his articles have been published. He has contributed different philosophical articles, and they have been torn into books. And you can see many of his books in YouTube. I can say that all his books have been very popular among the students and the researchers of philosophy. I don't want to speak much about him because both the speakers are very brilliant in their respective fields. I welcome Dr. Ratikanta Konda, and with this, I also welcome our host and convener, Sri Pramod Kumar Das. Today, he is hosting the session, and he is the man behind all kinds of philosophical reflection in philosophy family. I also welcome Dr. K. Omnaran Rao, the co-admin and moderator of philosophy family. I welcome both of you. I also welcome once again all the students and teachers of philosophy and other disciplines across the country to be connected with us. With this, I request in the first session Dr. Ashok Tarai to speak on this scheduled topic. Welcome, Dr. Tarai. To commence his speech on life and meaning. Over to Dr. Konda in the second session.
Good evening to all. I am grateful. Am I audible?
Yes, audible, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay. So I am grateful to the organizers for inviting me for the talk. So I'll not take much time. I'll finish it in time. Of course, I could not prepare a lecture on tractators, but mine will be on the language in the investigations, where I have seen language live in Wittgenstein philosophy. So here, if I remember yesterday's talk by Sir yesterday, so he was also starting his lecture on analytical side and saying something regarding meaning and all. I may differ from his view. I'll be purely with Wittgenstein's concept of language. So I'll read out my paper, then I may expect if anybody wants. And especially this paper, I have this paper also, part of it, this paper starts, it's a part of it, the presentation which I did in the conference at Poland. And I have received many criticisms, comments, and after the comments, again, I have taken up another paper which I'm going to read today. And it's not a fully finished paper, but I have tried my level best to say something which is sensical. I hope it will not be nonsensical. So language, I'll start with this. Language and human life are internally related. Life provides the foundation to language. Language reflects all the aspects of life, mental, ethical, and religious. It mirrors the deep structure of human thought and experience. Through language, man understands himself and others. Therefore, language is a necessary part of human life. However, here the question may be raised, can we live in a society or in a community without expressing himself and sharing his thoughts with others? Is it possible? In other words, can we live with, or someone can live with his own language without any public space? If I take up these questions, I propose a negative answer to this. I would argue for the idea that life without language is meaningless. Life without language is meaningless. Language without human life in society is just impossible. So this is my argument which I'm going to take up in the whole discussions. So language for Wittgenstein is a system of symbols governed by rules through which human beings in a community communicate with one another. However, language is not only communicational but also it's constitutive of what we call the forms of life of man engaged in the innumerable activities called language game. That is, his entire being is constituted by what he does in and through language, his entire life. Therefore, Wittgenstein has rightly pointed out that language is a form of life. This paper focuses on the semantic aspect of language, how meaning emerges within a given context. The context can be seen as a dynamic scenario which is influenced by sociological reality of the speaker and the listener most of all. How do people understand meaning amid these technological revolutions? The issue will be raised with reference to Wittgenstein's use theory of meaning, which will argue that it is the social use and generates meaning of the term. Here I am going to refer the philosophical investigations. Of course, Dr. Tarai had already spoken about the context and the meaning in Tractatus. I'll be taking up the other half. Fundamentally, it is the staticness of the meaning that Wittgenstein argues against through his use theory of meaning. Ever since Mill and Frege, meaning have been thought of having some sort of ontological existence of their own, such that some words have or devoid of meaning. That is, by virtue of something other than the words themselves, that the words have their meaning such that if the something is not there, words are liable to be meaningless. See, I'm not differing, or Wittgenstein, I'm not saying that Frege is totally different from, or Frege's notion is different from Wittgenstein, but I have seen, taken Frege in different context. So Frege pinned that something to be the objective reference of the word. That is, if words are successful in referencing something other than them, they are meaningful. If not, they are meaningless. On this account, words like morning star are meaningful because they refer to something other than themselves. They have an objective reference. Therefore, referent exists objectively in the world out there. That is, for a word to be meaningful, corresponding to it should be something that should objectively existent in the world out there. Thus, Frege makes meaning static. Of course, I think some of you may differ, but I feel Frege makes a meaning a static entity such that if a word does not have the static entity, that is objective reference, then the word is meaningless. Against such static notions, Wittgenstein put forth his theory of meaning. Again, arguing against Frege and the others, which I take the stand that Wittgenstein maintained that meaning are not something ontologically static entities residing in or outside the world, such that without them the word would be meaningless. So meaning are rather the result of dynamic processes that goes on underlying in the scenario of social communications. It is in the social use. It's in the social communications. So meanings are continually generated and discarded out of the descriptions of society. A word may or may not have objective reference to anything in the world, still it would be meaningful because it is being used by the society in its talk. For Wittgenstein, adopt a twofold strategy if you think of this meaningfulness. So discarding the notion of private language, which Wittgenstein rejected the private language, and on the other hand, maintaining that words acquire their meaning in the various language games that are played by the people. By discarding the notion of private language, Wittgenstein pushed the words and their meaning from the speaker's mind to the social space of the society, where meanings get generated continually through the use of language. This social nature of meaning, which generally we use, the social nature of meaning generation could not have been possible until and unless Wittgenstein described first the notion of private language. Okay, so here I'm going to say that what could be the notion of private language which he has rejected. So this is because even though Frege locates meaning in the objective reference of the word, but until such a reference is made and recognized by the speaker in his mind first, he will not be able to generate the meaning of the word concerned. To argue against such privacy of meaning construction, Wittgenstein first demolished the notion of private language. That means Wittgenstein here said that we cannot have a language which we call private. So Wittgenstein emphasizes the human being is a social as well as a linguistic being living in a linguistic community. In society, he has to express himself through a particular language. And that language consists of rules, meaning, and grammar, which must be obeyed. As a linguistic being, man has to obey some existing norms, which is an important aspect of human life. In order to live in a particular linguistic environment, one has to follow the existing rules, which constitute the grammar of language. Here, rule following as a practice is a continuous process in language use. Wittgenstein says that it is not possible that there should be only one occasion on which someone follows the rule. So, following a rule, making a promise, giving an order, so on, are customs, use, practice, or institutions. To understand a rule is to understand whole institution. Therefore, rule following activity cannot be an isolated or private practice. And we cannot follow a rule privately. The private language user does not have criterion of rightness and wrongness in his language. He cannot use public criteria for rightness. Those who are talking about private language, that language which a person he himself can speak, can use and all, that type of language. So here, whatever he does would be private to him. Therefore, the private language would not have any concept of rule following except the impression of rule following. Thus, the rejection of idea of private rule following leads us to a social theory of rule following. The moment we reject this private notion of rule following, is nothing but we are taking ourselves, putting the things into the public domain or a social theory of a language. Here, rule following is an activity for the entire set of members in the society. Wittgenstein writes, I quote, "When I learn the use of expression or learn what it means, that is how other people speak. Yet, I do not say I have learned what other people do. I have learned what it means. I have learned a rule that there should be rules at all, that's dependent on what people do. My marks are either marks I use in communications with other people, or they stand for expression I use with other people. What difference does this makes? He can use this just I do, I unquote. The rejection of private language begins out the idea that rule following is not one man's private practice. Rather, it's a social practice. That is, rule following is not meant for a single individual. Rather, it is for all human beings living in a particular society. Meaning, like rule following, the way rule following is, so meaning like a rule following is thus not a private process. The idea of private meaning is unintelligible. Here, whatever the user says as correct will be correct for him. If someone accepts this, that there can be private rule following, private use, and private language. For example, the private linguistic would say, tickling means I know only what I call that, not what anyone else. It's a quotation from Wittgenstein. That is, if the user of the private language can only know from his own case that the sensation means, then in case of other, he may use the same indifferently. It's doubtful whether he will be able to give the word meaning successfully because he does not have any concepts like sensations. 1 minute. Rather, he can make sounds or something that is totally different from the use of language. He may give a primitive rule. I will call this same thing pain whenever it occurs. In that case, here one would be free to do anything or nothing. Secondly, teaching is not at all possible here, and one cannot know what the word same means. Here I'm talking about the moment we accept that private language or private meaning or private rule following. So it cannot be known. Even if somebody says that same, what does the same means? Because it's private. Because to teach, one has to carry out some actions that has to be performed, which is not permitted in case of private user. So here the user of technique, which is part of practice, is missing. As Wittgenstein points out, I quote, if one has to imagine someone else's pain on the model of one's own, this is not too easy a thing to do. For I have to imagine pain which I do not feel on the model of the pain which I do feel. That is, what I have to do is not simply to make transition in imaginations from one place of pain to another. As from pain in the hand to pain in the arm. For I am not to imagine that I feel pain in some region of his body, which would also be possible. I unquote. If I obtain my conception of pain from a pain that I experience, it would be part of my conception of pain. In that case, I am the only being who experience it. I do not know whether someone else had the same pain. It is, of course, I who experiencing the pain, because if I understand the concept of pain, then it is found to be public nature. I get the conception of pain from the language I speak. So it is not true to say that I know what pain only from my own case. Wittgenstein right, I quote, but if I suppose that someone has pain, that I am simply supposing that he had just the same as I have so often had, that gets us no clue. It is as if I were to say, you surely know what it is 5 o'clock here means. So what you also know it is 5 o'clock means on the sun's means. It means simply that it is just the same time there as it is here when it is 5 o'clock. Thus, the explanation by means of identity does not work here. For I know well enough that one can call 5 o'clock here and 5 o'clock there the same time. But what I do not know is in what case one is to speak of its being the same time here and there. I unquote Wittgenstein. So thus, one learns what pain means only from the language one speaks and from the linguistic community in which he or she lives. So human being needs language to express their emotions and other experiences. By discarding the notion of private language, Wittgenstein defined the social and communication nature of language. He shows decisively that language is out and out social and interpersonal in nature and has to be understood only in a larger human context. So for Wittgenstein, then there is no private space of the speaker's mind where the meaning of the words are generated. So meaning generation is carried out fundamentally in the social act of communication. It's not someone's mind. That was the argument which Wittgenstein put forth. So having discarded the notion of private language and brought the meaning generation in the social space, Wittgenstein goes on to define how the meaning are generated in that social space, in the use. For this, he introduces the concept of language game. Language for Wittgenstein is open-ended continuum. He considers language as a game. Like a game can be various sorts, and any single game be played variously and nothing inherent about the games in particular. Language too can be various sorts, perform various functions, and nothing inherent about them such that no word is essentially meaningful or meaningless once and for all. So it is all about how a word is being used in a particular context, besides what meaning is to be attributed to the word. There are many jobs that language does, and there are many ways in which language can be related to the world. According to later Wittgenstein, language includes everything from the most primitive to most sophisticated one. Language is not a single system of symbols, but is conceived of consisting in many language games. Language is a system of language games and the system of activities carried on in language. So it is a network of linguistic activities, that is, linguistic practice, which human beings undertake amongst themselves, and wherein they also interact with the world. Thus, each language game is an activity, a form of life. Here, the term language game is meant to bring the prominence of the fact that speaking of language is a part of an activity or a form of life. I always take that it is the life. So it is it is. So in every language games, there is a form of life. To talk of form of life is nothing but to talk of a linguistic activity. The form of life which you talk is nothing but the linguistic activity which we carry out in our everyday life. To elaborate, each language game is an activity, a form of life which is closely associated with the way human beings live as linguistic beings. Language is not considered here from narrow logical point of view, but as it is closely embedded in human life. It is embedded in our life and living. So each language game is a form of life and is an expression of human action. So language is not one man's language. Rather, it is the language of the human community. A child starts learning from language, from the society, and it grows within the linguistic environment, which helps him to develop himself as a linguistic being. Here, language is not only a medium of communication, but also a tool to allow a person to express himself. In Blue Book, Wittgenstein writes, I quote, I shall in the future again and again draw your attention to what I shall call language games. These are ways of using signs simpler than those in which we use the sign of our highly complicated everyday language. So language games are the form of language with which a child begins to make use of words. The study of language game is the study of the primitive forms of language or primitive languages. If we want to study the problems of the future, of the truth of or falsehood, of the agreement or disagreement, of the propositions with reality, of the nature of the assertion, assumptions, and questions, we shall, with great advantage, look at primitive forms of language, in which these forms of thinking appear without the confusing background of highly complicated processes of thought, I unquote. To get a concept of language as a form of life, one needs to first understand the Wittgenstein's notion of primitive language and communication systems inherent in them. Wittgenstein describes primitive language game as, I quote, A is building with building stones. There are blocks, pillars, slabs, beams. B has to pass the stone and in that order in which A needs them. For this purpose, they use a language consisting of the words block, pillars, slab, beam. A calls them out. B brings the stone, which he has learned to bring at such and such call. Conceives this as a complete primitive language games, I unquote. In this language game, the assistant B understands what slab means. Here B understands how to participate in the language game of naming things, and B knows which with the name slab stands for. Here both A and B are carrying a linguistic activities while performing the action of building. So in order to do the building activity, both have to participate in such a communication language game, which would enable them to understand each other. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for both of them to carry out the activity. Here both A and B able to perform the linguistic activity because both of them have been trained in the same language game. Such training enables B to understand the linguistic signs issued by A. When A utters the word slab, he understands and acts accordingly to perform the linguistic activity in which he has already been trained. A will understand B if and only if he knows how to participate in the naming things, because in order to understand A, B should have the proper understanding of what A says. Then only B will be able to pick up the things A needs. Otherwise, instead of getting slab, he may get beams. Therefore, B should know to what object the name slab would be given. B should not always depend on the ostensive definition, because ostensive definition can variously be interpreted. One has to look for the context, the use of the word, in order to understand the meaning. So thus, in order to know the meaning of language, according to Wittgenstein, one need not have to go for any theory of meaning or even any picture theory of meaning, which we have seen in our Tractatus. Rather, one has to look at its use. That is, one has to see in what context the word has been used. For example, the word bank has a meaning depending on the context in which it is used. Bank can be understood to refer the bank of a river or to the place of monetary exchange. Here, to understand the meaning meaning one has to look for the use of the word. Each word has to be understood in the context of its use. So language games have many functions. They display different kinds of human activities. Each language game is a complete system of activity. Wittgenstein says, I quote, "We are not, however, regarding the language games which we describe as incomplete parts of language, but a language complete in themselves, as complete system of human communication." To keep this point of view in mind, it every often is useful to imagine such a simple language to be the entire system of communications of a tribe in a primitive state of society, I unquote. Thus, the question of why the meaning of a word goes on changing with time or place or context is because word goes on being used differently according to the different language games. Since every language game is being played according to its own rules, words goes on changing their meanings as they shift from one language game to another. Further, there is no limit to the number of language games. There are multiple language games. Language, in fact, is a system of language games, multiple language games. Wittgenstein give a few examples like language games, practicing, participating to giving an order. This is a quotation from Wittgenstein, and obeying them, describing the appearance of an object or giving its measurements, constructing an object, form a descriptions, reporting an event, speculating about an event, forming and testing a hypothesis, presenting the results of an experiment in the table and diagrams, making of a story and reading it, play acting, singing, catching, guessing, riddle, making a joke and telling it, solving a problem in a particular arithmetic, translating from one language into the another language, and asking, thinking, cursing, greeting, praying, I unquote. Each of these activities may be seen as separate language games, and each of them has its own way to carry out an activity in the language. Each is distinct from the other, as no two of them stand for the activity. The multiplicity is their hallmark. However, Wittgenstein point out, I quote, "And this multiplicity is not something fixed, given once for all, but new type of language game, new language games, as we may say, come into existence, and others become obstacle and get forgotten," I unquote. I conclude from the above discussions that language games thus consist of linguistic as well as non-linguistic activities. That is, language games are expression of thoughts or feelings through the users of the word in a particular context. In other words, language games explains how words functions in a context and how they express the thought and feelings of the speaker. Since each language game introduces a particular activity, that is a particular form of life, it offers different social space where words could be attributed different meanings relevant to the particular social space. Whereas a word bank can have the meaning of financial institution in a financial social space, it may acquire a radical different meaning of riverside in a different social space. That is how meaning go on generating from one particular social space or language games to another. So it is the use which decides what meaning should be tied to a particular words, and the use is dynamic in its sense that it goes on changing from one context to another according to the different rules being played in the particular context of language game. By uncovering the mechanism, Wittgenstein establishes that there is nothing static about meaning, and meaning generations is a continual and unending process. Thank you. This is this is the conclusion. So over to you, sir.
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Pandey, for your wonderful presentation on Wittgenstein's life and meaning. Very clearly, sir, you have mentioned the concept of language, how it is a necessary part of human life, and how life without language is meaningless. And you have also reflected upon that how Wittgenstein's view of language is a form of life, the activity of life, and the expression of human communication. You have very clearly reflected in your talk, and by the deep understanding of PI, you have explored on the rejection of a private language because it is unintelligible, and the meaning of language lies in its contextual use or social act of communication in different forms of language. Sir, at last, you have very clearly reflected upon that how meaning is generated, meaning generation is a non-ending process in life. And thanks so much for a brilliant exposition on the entire theme. And now over to Dr. K. Omnaran Rao to carry on the question and session of both the speakers.
Discussing this as a centenary year for Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, TLP in short. So I think, and also I have one unanimity with my friend Professor Pradhan, that TLP is more a book on philosophy rather than a book on logic. So philosophy part is more important than its logical foundation. Now the thing is, why I say this, and we should have a relook and we should interpret it in a new way from the Kantian and Schopenhauerian view, the reading of Tractatus, that is Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. Because you see, the Wittgenstein himself has reiterated this, that Schopenhauer was fundamentally right, and therefore he tried to give a logical foundation to the explanation of the phenomenal world that we find in Schopenhauer. So for this reason, I think that we should study Tractatus in the line of Schopenhauerian analysis, because you see, if we frame, if we try to put TLP in the empirical frame of the Vienna Circle and other empiricists, then we find that this just doesn't suit there. Because you see, even if Russell wrote the introduction to TLP, he was not very happy with this writing this, because Wittgenstein was one of his very favorite thinker and student. He tried to write the introduction, but ultimately I believe that the last sentence, that whereof one cannot say, thereof one must remain silent, we should start from that there only, so that we can enter into the idea of metaphysics as Wittgenstein proposes before us. So this is the view of some of the Dr. Tarai has entered into the discussion of so many, because he's working on Wittgenstein. He knows all the literature, and some people might have studied Wittgenstein's TLP from this point of view. So I think that will be the proper assessment of Wittgenstein. Because you see, one thing I think, the other day when Professor Pradhan was discussing from symbolism to silence, the initial lecture of on Wittgenstein, I found that silence is something which is a mask or symbol to truth. So when we find the logical analysis of TLP, then actually it is trying to put forward or establish the truth about the phenomenal world in the Schopenhauerian way. Now the thing is, if we cannot put or place Wittgenstein in the empirical frame, because Schopenhauer was emphasizing on will, and will to live is actually giving us the idea about the phenomenon and about the world we live in, the phenomenal world. So that is what is found in the Wittgensteinian analysis in TLP. So I think this is one thing, and so far as Professor Panda has given, he has given everything, and very nicely has said that this also I accept, that language game explains both linguistic and non-linguistic activities, because our life forms, there are different life. Wittgenstein is talking about life form, and different life forms are there. So in order to explain them, we have to accept that language game explains both the linguistic and non-linguistic activities. These two observations, I think, will be relevant for our discussion right now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. Goes well, Ashok Tarai. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir, for. I think whatever you said, it's quite right that one should begin with the aphorism 7, that is, whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. Now, this is one way of looking at Tractatus. However, people have started understanding or started giving value to 6.54, which is the penultimate proposition, then the 7th one. And this is the alternative reading, right? So, yes, I mean, there is also another question in the chat box I could see, that he has never talked about metaphysics or nonsense, metaphysics as nonsense or something like that. Of course, he has never said that. And this is a disagreement. This is a kind of dissatisfaction with Wittgenstein. Those who read Wittgenstein, it's because he is born into analytic philosophy, right? He was trained at Cambridge, and he knows how to situate a philosophical position. And of course, he was with Moore Russell. Now, if you look at Moore's writing and Russell's writing, it is quite coherent and quite visible, in the sense it is not that you can't understand it, right? But this man, within this periphery of analysis, within the periphery of analytic philosophy, he tries to situate philosophy from a continental perspective. And that is something that those who study analytic philosophy dissatisfy themselves with Wittgenstein. So that is a problem with Wittgenstein, actually. So whether he should have begun with the 7th one or the first one, that is another debate. Now, yes, you are quite right that he is trying to showcase Kant through Schopenhauer, right? So Schopenhauer is his source, but the way that he is showing up, it is the methodology. Maybe Kantian methodology is quite epistemological, and this is a philosophical methodology that he is showing in Tractatus. But you are very right that this is not something that is the final thing. The method is not something that is the final thing. So what is left to philosophy? Is it only method, or there is something else? And there he takes the clue from Schopenhauer, the idea of will, as you mentioned. So the idea of subject. So I did not talk about the idea of self there, and it has a very, very coherent understanding that he is definitely talking about a transcendental self. He himself has mentioned that self is something that transcendental. How can you reject it, right? Even if he says those who understand me would eventually find it nonsensical. Now, so if you take them literally that they are nonsensical, then that's the problem. So I think, along with Professor Pradhan and you and all of those who talk about the standard interpretation has some merit, because you need to, it's all about feeling Tractatus, not analyzing it. So that is what I feel. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Tarai, for your response. Now,
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Panda, Professor Panda, you want to, yes.
Thank you, sir. You have rightly observed that. In fact, I include everything because when we talk about life not only a linguistic being, he also has other activity. I take up everything. Thanks for your comment. I agree with you. So if there are any questions, others can ask.
Yes, thank you, sir. Well, if anybody wants to say something, well, they are welcome. Well, I'll wait for half a minute, and it would be happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think Kailash sir can suggest something. Yes.
Yes, Kailash Das sir is there.
Because yes, we had quite a discussion on Wittgenstein's philosophy.
Yes. He's there, and
yeah.
welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. If you have some observations to make or some queries to make, well, you are welcome, sir. Well,
Kailash sir, namaskar.
Namaskar.
Sir, namaskar.
It is really very heartening. I was listening very careful to both of you, and I was trying to make my memory very fresh with whatever you said, and I have tried to again try to understand what Wittgenstein has said and whatever I have read and gathered with regard to Wittgenstein. You have dealt with so many things exactly in a very brief time. You have talked about Professor Panda has talked about his private language argument, language game, etc. Whereas Professor Tarai was very interestingly initiated, which was also a very problem with me from my very graduation level, which I find Wittgenstein also was disturbed. With this question, the question was also my question, what philosophy is all about? And so what is the enterprise called philosophy? And Wittgenstein had an answer in Tractatus, what Dr. Tarai has very nicely put. Our concern is here, the enterprise called philosophy. We are contrasting as the students of philosophy. My personal, I heard my special as AJR, and when metaphysics was called nonsense by the positivists, then Wittgenstein is not exactly saying that it is nonsense, but in some other way, we gather that he's also having his traditional metaphysics. He's saying also that it is meaningless in the sense that you cannot state things in propositions which can be meaningless, because that is what we are referring to as metaphysics. So in that sense, I gather that he's also saying that a lot of metaphysics, in another word, is meaningless, though it is not very explicitly said anywhere. That is our dissatisfaction with Wittgenstein. That is not very explicit to say this, but actually implicitly, most of the metaphysics that is it. And when we are talking about language game, coming to Dr. Panda, language game, there can be so many kinds of language games. And there can be also a religious language game that we can play. He's okay with it. But my concern was that can there be also a metaphysical language game that we can play? Because the metaphysician uses his own tones, his own words, and also we can play such a language game. That was my question. But I don't know how Wittgensteinians can answer in that way. That is number one. And again, while talking about private language is the argument is, I took it as it is an answer to the problem of others' mind. When we say that the mind that I have, direct access is my own. So what I can know is only my mind. I can always indirectly know or surmise about others' mind. Others' mind, this according to this argument will always, because I cannot feel your pain, I cannot have your phone. Therefore, your pain is always the way I know your mind is not the way I know my mind. To that, Wittgenstein has said, we know others' mind because had we not known other minds, there could not have been possibility of a private language. As there is not a private language is not possible, therefore you know others' mind. If you do not know others' mind, then there can be possibility of a private language. Because private language is not possible, therefore we know others' mind. This is one of his arguments. And again, to say that I know my pain or I have a pain is not stating a description. Rather, it is a cry. It is replacing a cry. That is what he would say. And he has addressed this problem. I think it is quite satisfying, and I don't think any problem remains after Wittgenstein with regard to this. And you have put it in this, that this private language argument is that there is private rule following. Private rule following may be possible, but it cannot be checkable. So if it cannot be checkable, then there lies the problem. How can I check? He has given a very beautiful example of checking the truth of the newspaper, what is given in the newspaper, the same copy again.
Okay.
Because by the same copy you cannot. That's what he has very rightly said. So that if I have to check, am I using my sensation, some word in my private language, in my private diary, then how can I check that I have referred to the same thing again and again? So private checkability will be a problem. There cannot be a private checkable of the use of rules. That perhaps Wittgenstein would have said it that like. So, but one can be successful in following a rule, private rule. But how he has used the private rule cannot be checkable. That is the problem. Therefore, private language is not possible. That is what I have gathered so far. And but I am very happy that both of you have really impressed me very nicely by presenting your paper in your own very lucid understanding. I am very much happy that people say very complicated, very technical things, but you, like very good teachers, have really very lucidly elaborated things. You have not confused anybody. That's what my understanding of what you have said. So thank both of you, Wittgensteinians, and very good students
you,
of Professor Pradhan, and the way Professor Pradhan presents, you have also worthy students of Professor Pradhan to present like these things. So really it was very meaningful to be here with all of you and listen to you. Very heartening, really. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kailash Das, sir. Very nicely said. Well, you have made very beautiful observations and really agreeable to both the speakers. Well, we have with us our admin, Pramod Kumar Das. If he wants to make some observations, well, he is welcome. But before Pramod Das sir comes, well, he's not unmuting. Well, I have one problem with, one question to make to Professor Tarai. Well, when you make a distinction with the standard and the resolute, the standard reading and the resolute reading, and more comfortably, I feel you are comfortable more with the standard format rather than the resolute one, because finally you come to that stand. Because the Neo-Wittgenstein somehow they restrict philosophy to science, because they say unsayable is totally unsayable, sayable is sayable, and unsayable is unsayable, as you have tried to point out regarding the Neo-Wittgensteins. So if we go with the Neo-Wittgensteins, well, are we not restricting philosophy to the scientific domain purely? So that's the problem. But if we go with the standard ones, well, we take the metaphysical as the part of the soyable. So that's how we keep philosophy alive. And I'm happy with your sort of conclusion. I don't know whether I'm missing something else in that. Well, your response in brief.
Yeah. You are very much right. But the only problem with this that, you see, these resolute readers, they show their case so philosophically, so rigidly, that it is almost impossible to deny them. And that is why they are very famous, right? So the alternative readers. And I have highest respect for them. And therefore, I actually do not have any argument to go against them. But I was trying to look Wittgenstein from a different perspective. So by understanding his critique of modern civilization. So if he is critiquing a method that has been adapted by modernity, so to say, then if he's critical, then he himself cannot sort of celebrate this philosophical method that the resolute readers are trying to talk about. So this is the only clue that I am taking. Otherwise, believe me, sir, these resolute readers are very rigid, and the way they are presenting the case, they are indefensible. I mean, indefensible in the sense that, I mean, nobody is going to actually charge them. Okay. All these standard readers, they fall flat. Okay, and therefore I admire them, but at the same time, we can also have different perspectives. In fact, Wittgenstein's understanding is not at all final, right? So he is, and that is why I say he is in the group of analytic philosophy, but he has a continental mind. Okay, if you look at, I mean, philosophical investigation is still very lucid, but Tractatus in that sense, it's not that, it doesn't propagate that clarity. So that is the thing. Yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Tarai. Now over to Dr. Pramodkumar Das for his observations. Welcome, sir. Well, Professor Das.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, welcome.
Am I audible, sir?
Both audible and visible.
I really enjoyed both the talks by great speakers, Professor Tarai and Professor Panda. It was wonderful. I have my observation about Wittgenstein, and that may be treated as the question to both the speakers. And what exactly Wittgenstein contributed in philosophy? Because both the Tractatus and philosophical investigation deal with language. Both. And Wittgenstein deals with two types of philosophical activities with language. In Tractatus, Wittgenstein tries to understand the form of reality through language, and in philosophical investigation, Wittgenstein tries to understand the form of life through language. In Tractatus, Wittgenstein is focusing upon the referential theory of language. That language refers to the reality. The structure of language is the structure of reality, and we shall go on analyzing language, and we shall reach at the stage of elementary proposition. Then we shall further analyze. Then we shall reach at the stage of names, and that names will refer to objects which are metaphysical. Metaphysical in the sense we cannot have any description about the object, which is called substance by Wittgenstein. But that is taken in the language format. That is not private reality. Private reality, as we are speaking about private language with PI, in that sense, the private reality means the reality as such it's not understood, it's not explained in Tractatus. Here, language is taken in one type of analytic method. Both are analysis, that is linguistic analysis, and here we are making another type of analysis. We are going on analyzing the proposition, and by that way we are trying to understand the form of reality. But Wittgenstein failed. And in philosophical investigation, he is speaking of the other aspect of language, that instead of dividing language, analyzing language into parts, we can pervade it. We can have the various types of uses, and that is how the meaning of language is understood, and that is how the form of life can be mapped. But what exactly Wittgenstein wants to contribute? Therefore, in both Tractatus and philosophical investigation, Wittgenstein is silent about metaphysics. My point is, language is treated in both Tacitus and philosophical investigation in two ways. And Wittgenstein himself admitted that my Tacitus, the attempt of Tacitus is a failure. Then he spoke about philosophical investigation. And in philosophical investigation also, he is giving the conclusion that nothing is private, everything is public. There is no private language, there is no privacy in thinking. Every thought is public, every language is public, every expression is public. Here there is a confusion, there is a problem. Actually there is privacy. Everything cannot be accommodated by language. Everything cannot be expressed by language. There are so many things which are really silent in us, which are unexpressible, which are unsayable, unswayable. Such things are ignored in philosophical investigation. So this is my response. This is my question. My question is, what is the exact contribution of Wittgenstein? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's why even Dr. Kailash Das sir was also pointing on the language.
Yes, I agree with Dr.
Metaphysical
Kailash
use
Das,
of
sir.
language game.
I agree with, yes.
Is there any metaphysical language game? That's why he was suggesting. Dr. Panda, do you want
Yes.
I don't think there could be any metaphysical.
Just one sentence, sir. One sentence, sir. Therefore, William James, in his book Varieties of Experiences, he has said that experiences vary. There are different types of experiences. Experience does not mean the empirical experience. Empirical experience is different from religious experience. So similarly, the scientific language, empirical language are different from the metaphysical language. As Dr. Kailash Das said, religious language should be understood by its own connotation. So our experiences are different. Therefore, the use of language is also different. Therefore, the way we use the scientific language in order to understand the scientific reality, we should not entertain that type of use when we are trying to understand the metaphysics, or when we are trying to understand the religion. Okay, so emotive meaning is there, cognitive meaning is there. So we cannot avoid that. So as Dr. Das said, that metaphysical language has also a type of use. We cannot eliminate metaphysics by implementing the language game.
Dr. Panda? Well, Dr. Panda.
Yes. What now Sir said, you are right. Absolutely, you are right. And that is also another way of expressing, way of language, use of language. That is also another use of language. If you think of a form of life, a way of language, that is also a language, because there are different ways we can think of religious language or metaphysical way. If you could think of metaphysics, but that is not private. That was my intake. Okay, but that one can use, one can say as many language as possible. Language comes, language generated, new language comes up, new form of life comes up. So that is allowed.
And sir, what is your opinion, personal opinion? Instead of supporting Wittgenstein, what is your personal opinion about the personal thought, my private thought? Even that I may not
even if I think of my private thought, it needs a language. So without language, any kind of language.
The publicity about whether it is public or private.
No, it is public in the sense I am taking use the language and thinking of my things. It's not that
is confined to me. That is confined to me.
That is confined to me. It's not private.
It's locked in my personal chamber.
That is true. That is true. But it needs a language. There I cannot. If I take the definition of Wittgenstein, what private language is, in that sense, that is not private.
It needs language. There is no problem.
Yeah. How is it public? No, now the moment I speak, it will become public. But as long as it's with me, but it's with a language. So that language is not the private language. I have taken the existing language, I have taken the existing linguistic activity and kept it in my mind. But it is the base is or the base which I think of taking some language. So, but private language is that which only the speaker can think of, can speak of. Can...
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I shall speak only one thing. That animals react, but human beings respond. Suppose you are hungry, but you may not confess. Suppose you are going to the house of a guest, you are extremely hungry, but being asked,
I don't want to express.
I am not hungry. I am not hungry. So that is your privacy.
Yeah,
that is
that
not
is not
communicated.
privacy. Privacy is not denied. Privacy is not denied. That is private. My thought processes and my thoughts.
Yes, I got it.
That is private. That is not denied.
This is not denied. Thank you.
No. We have many, my creation of my poem in my thought, my writing article is mine. That was not denied. But the moment those who are saying that there can be an extra private language which does not have any connotation, which does not take any meaning, which does not have anything related to this, there is the problem lies. But private was not denied. Private, there are many things we can say that is private. Taking that language.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, in relation to this idea of privacy.
Shall I add one thing? Now, the thing is that Wittgenstein was a relativist. Okay, so he was relativist to value and cognitive situations. He was a relativist, and now what he says that the world is what we make of it. So this itself suggests that we cannot accommodate private language. We can have to assert we can have to gather the meaning from the social discourse. So all these things are very clear. So Wittgenstein was a relativist, and we should not take him in some other way. This is just a clarification. You can deliver.
Yes, Dr. Tarai. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Dr. Tarai.
Yeah, just one disagreement about this idea of privacy. See, Wittgenstein very clearly says that even if you pretend that you are saying that it is private, that you are hungry and you are not showing up the behavior of hungriness. Now, this is a pretension that you learn. So language is all about learning. And this is something that we need to understand. And when is that learning possible? You need to have the other, right? So the other means the community, the context, the society, right? So it is not actually private. So that is I think that is a little disagreement. And about, you asked a very big question that what is his contribution? I was wondering that what could be Wittgenstein's contribution? You look at the aphorism. So every aphorism has become a book. Thousands of theses, you see. So everybody is mad after Wittgenstein. So that itself speaks in a quantitative sense that he's quite famous, isn't it? Now, but if this is a very, very significant question that you asked, that what is his contribution? If you look at the contribution, that I think this whole idea of language, introducing language in philosophy, that all the philosophical problems are because of language. If you look at Tractatus, he is saying, if you must misunderstand the logic of the language, then you have a philosophical problem. Now, if you look at philosophical investigations, he's saying a philosophical problem arises if language goes on a holiday. So it's the very idea of language. It is the very idea of expressing our thought. It's a problem. So I think this is the biggest contribution that Wittgenstein, in a very unique way, that he has represented. So we cannot take out Wittgenstein's contribution just like that. So that's one thing. I think I forgot one other thing that you wanted to say, but anyway, okay, yeah. So that is the thing.
Anyway, thank you, Dr. Tarai. One thing, I learned from you, being hungry and not expressing, well, it may appear private, but it makes sense only in the public domain. It makes sense. You are hungry and don't express. It makes sense only in the public domain, only in the social domain. You cannot be confined to your own self. Okay, so it makes sense.
Basically learn.
So that's how it has to be public. Well,
so
Dr. Das
you basically learn that pretension. you basically learn that pretension. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank
I
you.
just want to make one mention, Professor Rao.
Yes, sir. Dr. Das. Yes, sir.
So, when we are talking about the contribution of Wittgenstein, one very beautiful line was told by Maurice Lazarowitz. Maurice Lazarowitz says, Wittgenstein will be remembered and he is most important because of his perception of philosophical problems. That is what he has said. And this is very appealing in the sense that how language, the significance of language, actually, Wittgenstein is not only important for philosophy students and philosophers, but his contribution is also in the field of linguistics. Now, they have taken interest in saying that what is the enormous power of language is all about. That we can think of a pre-linguistic, non-linguistic world, but he has totally changed our idea about what language can do. So the very maxim that he has is, that is what you have to understand, is how he perceived philosophical problems and how metaphysical problems or philosophical problems arise. There, he very pertinently said, and I don't have any contestants are there, that when language goes holiday actually. This is a very big thing that he has said, and that's what Maurice says, many philosophers have appreciated him like this. But there is a problem also that he is one of the philosophers, I have understood, that there is a lot of interpretation problem. So we are facing interpretation problems, and we are going on making interpretations, and still interpretations are there about Wittgenstein, which has revealing every day. So that is what the greatness of the philosophy is there. So I will say that, that there is no parallel with Wittgenstein. I will say it to a great extent. Thank you.
Yeah. In fact, whatever you said is very correct. Can I just respond? Can I please?
Dr.
Thank you. Yeah, whatever Kolas sir has said, it is true. In fact, he was confronted. I mean, Wittgenstein was confronted with this question: that why are you writing like this? Okay, why are you not clear enough? Initially, when the Tractatus got published by the publishers, he was asked, "What is this? What are you writing?" Okay, so he said, "This is the beauty of philosophy. Okay, it's not that I want to confuse people, but I want to, I want to understand them. I want people to perceive it." As you said, philosophy, the way that he has provided the idea of perception of philosophy. So that is something that he has revealed also. Right. Now, before that, Professor Pramod Das has asked this question that he read this issue that he has vehemently rejected Tractatus. No, I wouldn't say that. If you look at Philosophical Investigations preface, he said that I wish to publish a book which will have Tractatus and the Philosophical Investigation, which was posthumously published. So he said these are the two sides of one coin that I want to carry forward. Now, what is that he is carrying forward? It is, of course, not the logical language that he talked about. It is something else. Now, I believe whenever he is talking about self, the idea of self that we try to refer it to the metaphysical self in the Tractatus. Now, if you look at the aphorism 398 in Philosophical Investigations, he is still talking about the idea of self. I mean, Professor Ratikant Panda may not agree with me because he is talking about ordinary language and the ordinary immanent self and all. But I believe that in the aphorism 398, if you read it very carefully, that he is talking about, he is giving you an analogy that where a farmer is sitting outside his house, and this is a portrait, this is a painting, right? And he said the self cannot enter into the house. Now, what is the house here? The house is the world. The self is beyond that world. Now, this is a metaphysical thinking that continuing. Okay. No matter how you deny that he is talking about ordinary language philosophy, he is talking about the social self and so on, but still he is making that in the Philosophical Investigations itself. So there is definitely a coherence between Tractatus and Philosophical Investigation as long as the idea of self is concerned and the method. Okay. If you disregard it, it is okay, but he is carrying forward that method to the therapeutic method in the Philosophical Investigations. So these two things, I think we cannot reject. So therefore, there is coherence between Tractatus and Philosophical Investigation. Yeah, so that is the thing. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Professor Das, you want to say something? Pramod Das, sir.
No, I don't deny this contribution of Wittgenstein. It is very clearly understood because it is clearly seen. I don't mean that. what is the contribution of Wittgenstein to the society or to the philosophical discourse. My question is not that. If we are trying to deal with language, either way, in the factors way or in the philosophical investigation, the way of a philosophical linguistic analysis, beautifully it is articulated by Wittgenstein. That is the contribution of Wittgenstein. I do agree. But Wittgenstein himself is silent after having both type of uses. In Tacitus, he is silent. In philosophical investigation, he is also silent. Because something is there which cannot be accommodated, which cannot be explained by language. Their language fails. My submission is that.
Well, thank you, Professor Das. Dr. Ranjit Ghosh was speaking. He made a reference to Professor Ramesh Pradhan sir, and he made a reference to his article From Symbolism to Silence, and he made a very beautiful statement from Professor Ramesh Pradhan sir, where he said silence is a symbol to truth. And I want Professor Tarai, because he was a student of both any one of them. Well, few lines on this. Silence is a symbol to truth. How do you take this? Ratikant Panda sir or Tarai, anybody?
Yeah. If Ratika, you want to say something?
No, you say. Ashok, you start.
Okay. So
just a minute.
Yeah.
I just want to make the clarification. Actually, Professor Pradhan didn't say this, but I was reading after Pradhan's deliberation on this symbolism to silence. I was just going through certain articles on silence, and there I found that silence is the mask or symbol to truth. Now, if that be the fact, then there is no problem in the logical aspect in which Wittgenstein has tried to accommodate silence. But ultimately, in the last aphorism, he says that whereof one cannot say, thereof one must remain silent. So silence becomes a symbol of truth. A mask or symbol of truth, somebody said. I don't remember exactly right now. If you people have read all the articles, you can.
Yeah, you are right. Yeah, you are right, sir. Anyway, as we know, Pradhan sir, he would have made this same statement. Okay, if he hasn't made, I am quite sure that he will make it. Okay, or he would have made it, right? So there is no dispute about the fact that the symbolism to truth. So he would have made it. Silence to truth. Yeah. So now, why he makes this thing? This is all about Pradhan's writings and Pradhan sir's engagement with philosophy. That throughout his career, when he starts from the PhD till today, that he is not a person who will talk about method. Okay, he is not a person who will talk about the knife. Okay, he gives this beautiful example about analytic philosophy during our PhD days. He says, analytic philosophy, keeps its chest high by saying that we have got a knife to analyze everything. Now, at the end of the day, what is there to cut? You need to have an apple, and that is the truth that you need to have. Unless and until you have the truth, unless and until you have the apple, you can't cut it. So I therefore do not consider Professor Pradhan as the pure analytic philosopher of Moorean kind or Russellian kind, but he is quite, interested in understanding metaphysics. If you look at all his writings, so he is, these days he is into Indian philosophy. He is talking about the metaphysics of, Sankara philosophy, and there is this book has come out already, and then. So this is his engagement, and no wonder that he would have made this statement. You are very right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tarai. Well,
just one thing. One thing I want to add, That is, you see, this is the result of our studying Western philosophy in skip and bound. Because you see that we in our courses, most of the universities, we have not included Schopenhauer and those will aspects, those philosophers who are giving. We are, of course, will to believe William James is there in our course, but normally Schopenhauer and Nietzsche are not taught. So that's why had we been trained in Schopenhauer earlier, will to live and the entire thing, the Kantian change of Kantian notion and the emphasis on nomen thing in itself, all these things, if we would have studied, then our understanding of TLP would have been different, because we would have started the understanding the Wittgenstein from that, because the Wittgenstein consistently emphasized on this, that Schopenhauer was fundamentally right. So this is probably the problem that I think if Schopenhauer is included in the course prior to the reading of Wittgenstein, this would be of some help. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bose, for your observation and for making a suggestion for including Schopenhauer. Well, it is included now. Well, we have a paper now, recent Western philosophy or something like that. Recent Western trend or something like that. A new paper has been introduced in the modern CBSE syllabus where Schopenhauer has been introduced. Well, that way would be benefited in understanding Wittgenstein proper. Well, we are 15 minutes late. Well, we should close now. A lot of debate can be had from this, from both the sessions. Both the speakers spoke so nicely. Now over to Dr. Kailas Maharana sir to carry on the further proceedings. Thank you.
Can I just make one sentence, please? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I wholeheartedly thank Professor Ranjit Ghosh sir and Kailas sir and all of you, Rati bhai and everyone, that it made our evening. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you for.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much, Dr. Rao, for your interaction with Dr. Tarai, Dr. Pandey, and Dr. Ghosh, Dr. Kailas, and Professor Pramod Kumar Das. Really, today's evening has refreshed our mind on the philosophy of Wittgenstein, both in TLP and PI. Hats up to both the speakers, Dr. Tarai and Dr. Pandey. Today, actually, their wisdom has amazed us, and really, it was a very beautiful evening because both the speakers have very command over the philosophy of Wittgenstein. Now it's the time is very late. May I request Dr. K.O. Narayana Rao to propose the vote of thanks, both the speakers and to
yes, thank you, Dr. Maharana. As I already said, that both the lectures were really interesting. They have made this evening so good, and when Dr. Tarai put on his microphone to suggest that he also was benefited by his talk and listening to the debate that went on, and I thank Dr. Tarai for his very nice lecture on TLP, and Professor Ratikant Panda, and a very good man, as I see, a very good man, and very good Wittgensteinian, and both the scholars are very good students of Dr. Pradhan, and they have kept his line of thinking moving on, and we wish more and more of lectures on Wittgenstein from both the speakers in the days to come, so that we can have we can understand the mind of Professor Pradhan. I was never a student of Professor Pradhan. Well, through them, we can have the understanding of Wittgenstein through Professor Pradhan's mind, and that too through his students. So I thank both the speakers today for having explained the philosophy of Wittgenstein from Tractatus and Philosophical Investigations, and I thank Dr. Ranjit Ghosh for as usual, he is always there to make serious observations, and the debate goes on. And today too, he has contributed a lot to the entire discussion. And most importantly, today, I'm very happy that Dr. Kailas Das sir is with us, and he has also made beautiful observations, and that also added a lot of value to this evening and the course of the discussion. And I also take the remarks made by Pramod Das sir, so that And because I take that positively, because that has also brought in certain clarifications to make from the Wittgensteinian angle, how far Wittgenstein is relevant and how far Wittgenstein is original to his thought and what it was his contribution. So many things have come down have come down from this entire talk. And also thank our coordinator, Dr. Kailash Chandra Maharana, for introducing the speakers and making a brief synopsis of what they have said. And also thank all the question raisers and all the participants, and also thank our admin and host, who is the man behind all these webinars. So and more importantly, I thank all the participants for participating in this webinar and making this webinar so fine, so nice, so successful. And more importantly, the beautiful part of this webinar is the debate part, the question and answer session, because the presentation is there in the mind, but when you come to the debate, you are fresh, you have to be prepared, your mind has to be oriented, you have to be very much responsive. So there the play comes, and there this evening has really played very nicely, because both the speakers, they responded to the questions, and the debate went on so positively, so nicely. So I'm thankful to the speakers and all the participants for making this evening, this webinar so successful. So I thank everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Namaskar, everybody. Over to Pramod Das, sir, for declaring the meeting closed.
Yes, we are really grateful to both the speakers, and especially about Professor Tarai. I shall speak that he has expertise in Western philosophy. So, and he gives he speaks of his own. He gives his own interpretation very beautifully, and we enjoy that. And we shall invite him again and again with new topics on Western philosophy. And also Dr. Panda, his deliberation is very lucid and very lucid. We enjoyed both the speakers, and please select beautiful topics from Western philosophy, and we shall invite you again and again. Thank you. We are all grateful.
And hearty gratitude to Professor R.C. Pradhan for producing such talented disciples. Okay, thank you.
Naturally.
Thank you, sir.
Now the meeting is declared closed. Thank you.
Thank you.